The image is a postcard of British tradition, so familiar it feels preordained. The royal family, clad in somber, elegant winter coats, walking the short path from Sandringham House to St. Mary Magdalene Church on a crisp Christmas morning. It is a tableau of unity, continuity, and quiet Christian faith, beamed to a world that still, despite everything, finds comfort in its stability. For decades, this walk has been a masterclass in silent communication, a wordless bulletin on the state of the House of Windsor. A smiling Queen Elizabeth II at its heart was the anchor, the arrangement of her children and grandchildren around her, a subtle indicator of favor, discipline, and hierarchy. But in the reign of King Charles III, this carefully choreographed ritual has morphed from a symbol of unity into a high-stakes, emotionally charged theater of tension. The 2023 walk, in particular, has been retrospectively dissected as a pivotal and profoundly toxic moment. The day when Prince William, the stoic future king, reportedly reached his breaking point. To understand this explosion is to look beyond a single morning spat. It is to trace the fault lines of a monarchy under unprecedented strain, between modern public relations and ancient protocol, between personal trauma and public duty, and between a king's vision and a prince's burden. The Christmas walk was never just a walk. Instituted in the public eye by the late Queen, it served multiple purposes. It provided controlled, accessible imagery for a grateful press in public. It demonstrated the family as relatable. They walk, yet distant behind a rope line. Most importantly, it presented a united front. The absence of a figure spoke louder than any presence. The visible tensions between Prince Andrew and the Duke of Edinburgh in later years, or the careful spacing between Prince Harry and his brother after 2019, were all parsed for meaning. The 2023 walk was freighted with unspoken history. It was the second Christmas without the Queen, the family's ultimate matriarch and referee. King Charles, now the patriarch, was implementing his vision of a slimmed-down monarchy, a practical and fiscally prudent concept that, in human terms, felt to some like a contraction of the family circle. The shadow of Prince Harry and Meghan's absence and their ongoing, very public narrative of grievance lay heavy over the estate. The Sussexes' Netflix docuseries and Harry's memoir Spare had turned private wounds into global entertainment, leaving a residue of betrayal and anger within the family, particularly with William. On the surface, the day proceeded as usual. The King and Queen Camilla led. William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, followed with their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, whose inevitable charming antics provided the necessary splash of levity. But behind the smiles, sources now describe an atmosphere thick with unspoken rules and simmering resentment. The toxicity reportedly stemmed from a culmination of pressures placed upon William, pressures that turned a simple procession into a pressure cooker. What could make the famously disciplined, politically astute heir apparent explode? Reports suggest it was not one single remark, but a perfect storm of factors that finally breached his formidable reserve. William, in the global public's eye, within the reductive framework of heir versus spare, William was portrayed as privileged, unsympathetic, and part of a cold institution that had failed his brother. This characterization, which William and his advisors view as a profound distortion and betrayal, hangs over him constantly. Every public appearance is now a chance to counter that narrative, to prove he is not the villain of Harry's story. The Christmas walk, a direct comparison to scenes from their childhood, was a live trigger. Monarch in a hurry. His ambitious plans for the monarchy's evolution, his fervent focus on his own causes, the environment, architecture, faith, and the operational downsizing have created a relentless workload. A significant portion of this workload, particularly the day-to-day representation and the heavy lifting of royal engagements, falls on William and Catherine's shoulders. There is a sense, reportedly felt strongly by William's circle, that he is being asked to shoulder the burdens of the slimmed-down institution while being given little agency over its strategic direction. The walk, a key logistical and security operation, became a microcosm of this, a duty to perform with emotional landmines attached, under the scrutinizing eye of a father whose priorities seemed elsewhere. Also, as protector of his family, his wife and children, and by extension, the institution they will inherit. The Sussexes' accusations of racism, indifference to mental health, and cruelty towards Meghan were, in William's view, not just attacks on the institution, but direct attacks on his wife's character and their shared values. The Christmas period, a time for family, forcibly highlighted the fracture. His explosion, as described, was that of a man exhausted from defending his family in private while being forced to perform normalcy in public. The toxic atmosphere was the feeling of having to walk a gauntlet of public judgment, smiling while privately seething over perceived injustices against his spouse. Where, as a 15-year-old boy, he walked behind his mother's coffin. His relationship with the media and public pageantry is permanently scarred by that trauma. The Christmas walk, with its crowds and cameras, inevitably echoes those memories. The requirement to perform familial harmony, when true harmony is so clearly absent, may have felt like a profound violation of his own emotional truth, a pantomime that dishonored the very real grief and complexity within the family walls. The explosion itself is said to have occurred in the private quarters after the public display. It was directed not necessarily at the king personally, but at the overall situation, the unbearable tension of the performance, the unsustainable pressure, and the feeling of being trapped in a narrative he did not create and cannot control. It was the bursting of a dam, a raw human reaction from a man who has spent 2 decades perfecting the art of composure. This incident did not create a rift between king and heir. It illuminated and deepened one that has been forming for years. Theirs is a relationship in complex transition, moving from father and son to monarch and successor. Charles is a visionary, an activist king who believes in using his position to catalyze change on issues he has championed for 50 years. William is a pragmatist, shaped by a modern, post-Diana, post-internet world. His focus is on emotional legitimacy, mental health, and a monarchy that earns its place through demonstrable service and relatability, not just tradition. The slimmed-down monarchy is a point of tension. Charles sees operational efficiency. William sees a family stripped to its core, increasing the burden on the remaining members and making the institution appear more brittle, not more resilient. Charles's own history, his marital difficulties, his relationship with the media, his complex public persona informs his decisions. William, who lived through the fallout of that history, is determined to avoid the same mistakes. He runs a tight, fiercely loyal household, prioritizes his children's normality, and engages with the media on his own highly controlled terms. From William's perspective, the current crises are partly the result of the institution's past failures to adapt and manage personal tensions. His explosion was a symptom of his fear that the same patterns were repeating. We are in the unusual situation of having a very senior, long-serving heir. William, at 41, has been preparing for kingship his entire life. He has strong opinions, a seasoned team, and his own popular mandate, separate from his father's. The Christmas walk clash underscores the difficulty of this liminal period. How much deference does the heir show? How much influence does he wield? The walk, a symbol of continuity, became the stage for this silent struggle over the pace and nature of change. The fallout from this toxic Christmas is not a private family matter. It has profound implications for the monarchy itself. Further into a professionalized, insulated operation. Catherine's Shaping Us campaign and William's Homewards initiative are meticulously planned, positive, and distinct from the family drama. They are building a brand of stability and constructive purpose, consciously separate from the soap opera narrative. This is both a savvy strategy and a sad indictment, the need to wall off their working lives from their family reality. There, the cracks are now part of the story. The public and media no longer buy the perfect tableau. This forces a new, more authentic mode of operation. But authenticity is dangerous for an institution built on mystery and deference. How does a king manage a son who is also a subordinate and a rival center of power? How does an heir express frustration with a system his father heads? As a slightly louder currency in certain circles, it is less a serious prediction and more a barometer of the perceived tension. The narrative is no longer simply about succession and the distant future, but about the compatibility of the current reign with the preparation of the next. Can Charles's vision accommodate William's needs? If not, the institution risks a king-in-waiting who is emotionally disengaged, or worse, publicly at odds with the crown. Beyond the institutional analysis lies the simple, tragic human reality. This is a family that has experienced profound public trauma, the loss of a mother, a grandmother, a sovereign, the very public estrangement of a son and brother. The Christmas walk is meant to celebrate togetherness. That it has become a source of such anguish reveals a depth of dysfunction that no amount of crown jewels can mask. William's explosion was not the act of a prince, but of a man carrying generational trauma, professional pressure, and familial betrayal on shoulders the world assumes are indefatigable.